It's Friday, and this is the last edition of Business Morning for the week. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. The Lagos State Governor, Bajaj this week announced his plans to review the pension law, which provides for the payment of pension and other entitlements to former governors and their deputies. This disclosure was made by the governor while presenting the 2021 budget to the Lagos State House of Assembly at Alausa, Ikeja. Let's take a listen.
We'll be sending an executive bill to this House, which will appeal that the House will help to repeal the public office holder payment of pension to former governors and deputy governors, because of our resolve that we need to lead from the front, and we need to show this with Lagos State. We'll be sending this executive bill to this noble House. It is our firm belief that with the drilling revenue and the appurtenant inflationary growth rate, that we need to come up with innovative ways of keeping the cost of governance at a BRS minimum while endangering the spirit of selfless service in public space. Mr. Speaker, I'm presenting a budget size of 1,155,022,905 naira and 82 kobo.
Bajaj Sanwo-Olu, the governor of Lagos State. Okay, let's take a look at some of these benefits under this law. Now, the governor, if I can get that slide there, the governor and the deputy is entitled to life pension equivalent to 100% of annual basic salaries of the incumbent governor and deputy. Now, in terms of housing, the former governors are entitled to one residential house in Lagos and another in FCT, while the deputy is entitled to one residential house in Lagos. Now, let's look at transportation. An ex-governor gets 3 cars, 2 backup cars and 1 pilot car every 3 years, while the deputy gets 2 cars, 2 backup cars and 1 pilot car every 3 years. Look at the furniture allowance. 300% of annual basic salary every 2 years for both of them. Now, house maintenance, 10% of annual basic salary, that goes for both. And of course, both of them are entitled to a cook, steward, gardener, and other domestic staff. Mind you, it doesn't matter how many they are, and they are all pensionable. Okay, this brings us to the question of the issue of high cost of governance in Nigeria, which has become a very, very disturbing phenomenon. And I have with me a development economist and the chief strategist at Westphalia Resources, Joe Femi Daguro, to look at some of these issues. Good morning, Mr. Daguro. Well, if I would have to get these benefits, of course I would want to be a governor or a deputy governor, isn't it? Why wouldn't I? Why shouldn't I?
It's sad. It's really very sad that this is some of the things people have to be hearing at this point in time. But it's a good thing at the same time that the governor is looking at the point and saying, look, he has the intention to cut off all this mess. I call it mess because, you see, since that time that this issue has been raised, it has generated a lot of interest. Most people do not even know what the budget is all about, what it entails. They are just picking up this particular item on the budget and say, oh, it's about the deputy governors and the past governors. So most people, and now you've seen that even some past governors like Babatunde Fashola, he said, look, I'm not even collecting all this. So people are now coming out to tell the truth of who collects what and who collects, why they don't collect and what.
But for him, trying to push it forward,
yes,
looking at how this our system works.
Right.
Do you think he will be able to pull through?
Yeah, I think the thing is this, the current situation will enable him to be able to push it through. Because this is the time now that people are beginning to take more interest in what is going on. Not only that, if you are talking about cost of governance, this gentleman tells you that, look, he has not bought a car for some time, that he has been there. He has been using all the old cars. He's been living in the same place wherever it has been provided. But look at, people will begin to look at what, not even just the governor now ends, what about the House of Assemblies? Why are the members having backup cars? Why are they, having to use Jeeps or whatever SUVs to do their job? You see, when they say they have to have backup cars, and it is not stated, the cost of the car is not fixed. So you can decide to have a Mercedes-Benz, the latest version,
and
as the 3 cars.
Every
so it is not even stated how much. It is not pegged at a certain what kind of brand of car. So it is what it chooses to.
Well, the Lagos State is making its own clear what the pension or whatever it has contains. We don't know what other states.
Yes, let's talk about Lagos State. You see, I think it started from this part. It started in Lagos State. Another state maybe started copying the same thing. You see, we are Nigerians. They are seeing this, they are reading this, and they begin to say, look, if Lagos State starts it, what about Ogun State? What about Anambra? What about Ebonyi? And even it will be so sad that some states, they cannot even pay their salary. Their IGR is so poor, and they are still going about all
this. You see,
this.
that is the problem. So that brings us to the issue of the general structure of government and our cost of governance. I mean, what's your perspective, and how do we move forward from here?
You see, we good thing is, in Lagos State, for instance, we have a living legend, Alhaji Lateef Kayode Jakonde. He is one of the favorite leaders that I just look at how simple his life was and is. This gentleman came as a governor, living in his house at Ilukpeju, driving his old Toyota car, and still living in the same place. This is the kind of people you see they want to serve, they want to lead, until we begin to have this law-making process as not a money-making process, until we begin to have people who want to go into governance, not because they want to show the kind of affluence that is within.
But for service.
Yes, but you even have first ladies at the top, first ladies at the bottom, you have at the local government first ladies and all that. So in this thing, we have to look at it. We don't even know the actual amount or salary the people ends. That starts from there. And now you begin to say special assistant, senior special assistant, special advisor, senior special advisor, and all the senior special advisors, they have their own staff as well. Special advisor has a senior advisor, and a senior advisor has senior special advisor. So
and in fact, even when you have part of the part of what is contained here, the domestic staff, they are all pensionable.
Listen, at a certain age, how many domestic staff do you really need? Because most of these guys, when you retire, you are supposed to be about 70.
You don't have a limit. It's your choice how many of them you want to have.
Then you are traveling abroad, you carried your domestic servants along with you as well. Is that correct? You are traveling. Why? You see, it is a common thing in this country that we want to be there to enjoy it, not to work for it even. And that is why, listen, I said it. When Jakonde was there, he set up, a kind of schools. He made schools available. And people are saying, Jakonde school, Jakonde school. People even messed it up. They call it different names. But do you know what it has turned to be? How many schools have we built within this short period? Jakonde was able to build maybe 86 or something school in a local government, in a state. So let us begin to take census of what our governors have done. Let us begin to have a parameter of saying, look, within 6 months, within a year, this is what you have done. Come clean, be transparent with it. And this is what the people want to. You see, the funny thing is this. Local government that is supposed to be for the grassroots people is a mess. You don't even know who is your local government chairman. You don't know who is your local government councillor or who is your ward councillor. The problem is grassroots political education. We don't do that. What these guys would do after 4 years, now they have even made local government to be 4 years instead of 3 years that they were running before. They go back there and give them recharge cards and whatever. Let us know how much are we spending on bursary. Do we still have Lagos State bursary or agency for that? Do we still have scholarship for people who are brilliant to go to school? Do we have all these things? These are the things people have been enjoying in Lagos State before, and they should be enjoying it. It should have been better than what we used to have. When I was in school, I enjoyed that. And why shouldn't these young people enjoy? It's so sad, Chimeze, that sometimes we say, during our own time, we used to enjoy. It's senseless. What is during your own time? That means your father has prepared something for you. So this is our own time now to prepare something for our children, and we are not doing it. And these children, they are just seeing it and say, listen, what have you done? You keep telling me during your own time there was job, during your own time. This is our own time now. So we are not doing what we're supposed to do. A young man at the House of Assembly will just put on agbada and say something he likes and calling his mates, even children. And somebody, whether it's life, you see them. This is not about fake news. You see somebody that you say, look, Nigerians, at school abroad, and when I saw these people, it seems Nigerians are, they're crazy because they're on drugs. You see, we don't even control what comes out of our mouth. We don't even show love to people. It is not just when election is coming, you print. Say, watch out. The point is that when election is coming, what do these people tell you they want to do? They just go out with posters showing wristwatches. They post like this, or they do like this, and they show different kind of clothes, and they don't tell you what they're going to do. So until we begin to say, what do you want to do? Why are you going there? So we don't ask questions. So when they are there, they're not doing anything. You don't ask questions. So it's a crazy world.
Now, the issue now, the problem is not just with Lagos State.
Yes.
Now, it's about the nation now.
Yes.
And we know that government, both state and federal,
Right.
have been crying, we don't have revenue.
Right.
There is no money to do anything.
Right.
Look at the students. They're at home.
Yes.
They can't go back to
Right.
school. And there is no money to channel to education sector.
Right.
There's no money to channel to health sector.
Right.
And yet, you have politicians earning as much as this.
This is the last time I spoke about this compassionate thing. We are not our brother's keeper to a large extent. Don't you think that even senators and all these people should come and say, look, what is our salary? If I'm earning 3 million or 1 million every month, can't I just say, okay, half of my salary for the next 6 months I'm not going to take? Can't these people come together and say, look, we're not going to take salary, half of our salary or quarter of our salary for the next 6 months? For the next 1 year, can't people just be ready to sacrifice for this nation? And you are expecting other people to sacrifice, but you don't want to sacrifice? You want to ride your top cars? You want to go on holidays with your wife and children? And these people should just be paying taxes. For goodness sake, people think, look, show me compassion that you are doing something for me. Then I'll be able to support the government. And this is what we have to, this is what the young people want. Not only the young people, don't forget that you have pensioners as well, who are not being paid in some states. You have pensioners who are dying. Every 2 years or something, you say that you come and do verification. And in the process, they are dying. People are dying of malaria.
I listened to an elderly man, a very old man,
Right.
speaking on TV yesterday, talking about the fact that, look, it's not COVID that is killing us.
Yes.
It's our pension, not being able to get our pension, that is killing us. Now, this issue of cost of governance,
Right.
that's a serious cancer eating down the governance of this country. How do we begin to address it?
Yes.
What are the measures that, it's paramount that we just have to deal with this. How do we begin to go about this?
It's something laughable. Like I said, even at the White House, I want to believe that, groceries and things like that, entertainment is being paid for by the president. And you can see that some president, they will say, look, I'll give you an example. We took all these things from somewhere and we are doing what we like with it. And sometimes it looks as if we're having a reverse democracy, not doing the right thing. We just decide to do what we want to do, and the rest we don't care about it. How many governors in Nigeria will say, look, I'm earning just 1,000 naira, and I'm dedicating the rest to charities or to how many? I don't know them, but if you know, you can correct me. How many ministers, how many commissioners will say, listen, this is it? But then they will tell you, look, listen, lawmaking is not about the lawmaker going to his constituency to go and donate money. Then we have to begin to let people understand that. But then how do you want people not to make this money when the cost of obtaining form to contest an election is more than 1 million, 2 million, 3 million to obtain the form? So now, how do you want some people to go into this government, to say, look, I want to be part of the government? The good people don't even have the money to buy the forms. And this cuts across all the political parties. So until we begin to readjust the system to enable people, capable people, and then you don't need to wait for 4 years to see that if this gentleman or gentlelady is not doing the right thing, let us recall. What is our recalling process? What is our process to recall our representatives, if truly they are representatives? So now, if a man who has never bought a car in his life becomes a commissioner, and within the first 6 months is driving the brand new Toyota, then the next person wants to look at it, I want to be a councillor. So this is what is going on. And he said he has the right to go there for 2 times. He even has the right. It's not that the people have to vote him. It is right time for, 2 times knee. Sorry, I'm speaking Yoruba. I lost 2 times. So he's going to 2 times. Who told you he has to go for 2 times, right? We have to vote him for 2 times if he has done a good job. Not for you to say, 2 times, so who told you that? So we have to begin to re-engineer our brain. And this is why the young people, they don't need all this kind of craps. They want to say, look, if you want to go and represent me, tell me what you want to do. If you are representing me, what are you doing? I have the right to ask. We have websites all over the place. We have agencies in Lagos State. All the governors, they set up agencies upon agencies. It's not functioning. And you have DGs in all these agencies riding big cars. For goodness sake, let's begin to ask these people open questions. You see, they don't do this kind of open session to allow people to come in. Ask one Iyalamala or one Buka woman. She knows how to manage the economy better. Have you ever seen them go on strike? They don't go on strike. If they go to my 12, you see how they discipline themselves. The woman's grinding pepper is on course. If you come late, if you don't watch properly, they sanction you. We don't sanction anybody. Go to the man that is doing the car on the road. He has to charge you 500 naira. He will never charge more than 500 naira. These people with native economic sense, they are better off. And the only thing is this: don't go there. Stay in your house and go to the state house. Stay in your house and let's pay your rent. Let us know what house you are staying in. We begin to fix rent. 200,000 per annum if you want to go to the House of Assembly. Let the people speak. Democracy is for the people, by the people. We are not the people again. We are not the people deciding. They are deciding for us. And there are so few. If 40 people in Lagos House of Assembly, they are deciding for 23 to 30 million people, and they are not doing something right. But where do we have the avenue to speak? I'm just one of the people that is speaking. We have millions of people that they cannot speak like I'm speaking. Until we begin. You see, they say they're having these centers for people to come and talk. They don't invite the people that we talk. Until we begin to say, let us talk. And that is why we have to find a way. Let us bring back certain things. Free health should be something for people. This is something we want to do. The governor said he's going to build a psychiatric hospital. He's going to build another general hospital. Fantastic. I was asking a friend yesterday, where is our school of nursing? Because in those days, you see nurses, they dress well. I don't see nurses just like that before. I want to see nurses and midwives being trained. We have quality people. But what happens? Nigerian nurses are going to UK. They are going to UAE. They are earning fantastic amount of money. How dare you say you are a medical doctor, they have not paid you for 3 months? It's a shame if doctors would go on strike to get their salary. And he puts on the white coat every morning, he's leaving the house, and the people are saying, Dr. Lomomi, my doctor could lower. What are we talking about? Not even salary. So these are the realities on the ground. And let's begin. You are talking about education. Do you know what the ASU people say? They say, go and learn a skill, go on holidays and read a book. Have fun. So how do we even have fun when the father and the mother, they are not very paid? 30,000 naira, most people are not having it. And then they say they go and have fun. That means the ASU people, they know that this thing has no end. There's no end in sight. And there's money to do that. Let's cut, if we cut the salaries of our people and we begin to remerge the agencies, even there's some ministry, when you have a Ministry of Information, a Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Sport, merge them together and let's begin to have a way forward. The way forward to cut all this thing, the mess we find ourselves, we brought ourselves to this mess. And that's why we are loaning money here and there. But good thing, the governor said he's cutting the cost as well. He's been able to what is it called now? He's been able to negotiate the loans from whatever digit to single digit, 6%, 9%. It's a good thing. Let us look at it from that ramification. I want us to give the governor a chance. He has good intention. All these are intention. And the good intention is there, but the practicability of the good intention.
Absolutely, making it come to reality. Yeah. And not just here in Lagos State, but the country as a whole. I mean, the federal...
even
the federal government should also look at theirs. The state governors should look at this. I mean, if we continue to talk about this, we probably would not finish this conversation.
Even the MDAs, they said some MDAs cannot even pay their salaries again. And they said, okay, the federal government will come in and pay. Who are the MDAs? Then before you know it, somebody will say we have 1,000 ghost workers. Or a ghost worker that has an account, that has a BVN. What kind of ghost worker is that? And it's only this country, you say, a snake has swallowed millions. Up to today, we have not been able to gather that snake. A lot of mess, man. Let's begin to look at how to do it and get the people to do it. If you don't do it right, let's sanction you.
Mr. Dagoro, we'll leave it at that. Well,
thank you.
Ours is to continue to talk, and let's just hope they listen. Thank you for sharing your thoughts here. Joe Femi Daguru is a development economist and the chief strategist at Westphalia Resources. And now as investors continue to reap negative real return on their investments, where next lies an alternative investment with Alpha? That's our conversation after the break. One of the world's largest manufacturers of three-wheelers, Bajaj Auto, has launched the most superior keke ever seen in Nigeria, the RE250, along with their exclusive three-wheeler distributor, Stallion Group. At the event in Lagos, which also witnessed the unveiling of football legend Austin J.J. Okocha as ambassador, Stallion Bajaj Auto says the brand's association with the football star tallies with the company's desire to provide a better, stronger and more reliable keke for the Nigerian people.
Very special guests and esteemed customers and dealers in the auto rickshaw business in Nigeria. They've all been invited to witness an introduction of a new model being introduced for the first time in Nigeria market.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Bajaj Auto is unveiling what it calls a superior keke RE250 themed big heart, stronger body.
250.
To deepen the penetration and reach the grassroots, Bajaj is partnering Stallion Auto of the Stallion Group and introducing Nigeria's football legend Austin J.J. Okocha as brand ambassador.
This Bajaj RE250 is the only keke that can dribble on the road like me. So you know anything dribbling, I'm in there.
Highlight of the event is a raffle draw which saw some customers and dealers going home with exciting prizes, including a brand new RE250 keke super body.
Put your hands together for our first winner.
So what's special or different from what existed, you ask? This comes with the biggest engine of any rickshaw in Nigeria with a 236cc engine, a 10 inches tire compared to the 8 inches of the previous ones, a CV shaft which allows for more power, more maneuver, less wear and tear, and covering the distance of 100,000 kilometers without requiring maintenance and more.
We have taken care of the stronger body. We have taken care of the larger heart through the larger engine of 236cc. We have also taken care of the comfort of the riders as well as the the passengers.
Part of Nigerian automotive sector, you will see Stallion in it. And why we have been successful all throughout? Because we have a network which can cater to your after sales service and spare part, and that's where Bajaj joining hand with us, we have taken Bajaj to a lot of places in the country, and Bajaj has also given us opportunity to further get into deep Nigeria.
For Stallion Bajaj, Nigeria is an important market in the world, and the RE250 is designed for tougher roads with additional front fork which eases shoulder pain for the rider.
Well, the fixed income market has been on the downward trend amidst expected rise in inflation rate. The NSAS protest is expected to impact more on inflation in October. Investors are reaping negative real return on their investments as a result. There will be the need to seek alternative investment with Alpha. And what are the alternative investments to bridge the inflation gap? Ayodeji Ebo, senior economist and head of research and strategy at Greenwich Merchant Bank, joins me now. Good morning, Mr. Ebo. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
The October inflation figure is set to be released on Monday. October was quite an eventful month. On one hand, we had the NSAS protest that escalated into the banditry space and loots, triggering a 24-hour curfew in several states, including Lagos State. On the other hand, persistent constraints like the high prices of imports, the unfavorable weather conditions, among others, concerning factors linger. What are your expectations for this data?
Thanks. the month of October was quite eventful, and we had initially projected about 14.1% for the inflation rate in October. But with the end-SARS protest, which had led to a lot of restrictions, and also looking at some of the factors of production which they were unable to assess that, we are projecting about 14.6%. More it will come from food inflation. If you look at within that particular period, the movement of goods and services across the nation were restricted, and that would impact on prices of goods that had impacted prices of goods in the market within the month of October. So we're expecting that would close at about 14.6%, which it's really very significant.
Now, let's take a look at the capital market. It brings, it's been an interesting week. Stocks swinging higher and even hitting a circuit breaker yesterday, where trades were halted for about 30 minutes. Yet again, stop rates fell to record lows at the primary market auction. What's the signal you're taking away from that?
I think the first thing to note is that if we look at this trend that currently happening, from the last MPC meeting, where we saw that it was clearer the direction of the MPC members as well as the CBN governor that this low interest rate environment is here to stay. And when you look at the available liquidity and maturities in the system relative to the issued paper, as a result of that, we saw that significant decline in rates. For a 90-day bill went as low as 0.035%, and 1 year going for 0.3%. As a result of that, investors needed to look for alternative, which the first point of call was the equities market. For the PFAs, for most of them, they would have also examined or assessed the market looking at it from a dividend yield perspective. If I pick a stock, for instance, picking one of those stocks, when you look at some of the banking stocks, even at the current price, their dividend yield retained using last year's yield is still as high as 7 to 8%, and a 5-year bond is currently going for around 2% or 2.5%. So that can explain the reason why we saw that major surge in the market yesterday. And speaking to the circuit breaker, this is the first time in the history of the market that would have a circuit breaker applied for an upside position. We've seen it applied when there's a panic sell, when there are panic sellers in the market. It's been applied for the downward limits. For this, the first time. But just to also clarify for the sake of the market, this rule is already in place. It's not something that the NSE just applied overnight. It's a global standard. When you see such major momentum in the market, you apply some break. And so that 30-minute break was for most of the investors to reassess their position, to be sure that they really want to buy at these high prices. And it's really helped. It's helped over time, and it's just to check. So it's not like an anomaly. It's something that is globally applied when we see such momentum in the market.
Now, you talked about, of course, the record low yields at the fixed income market. Investors are not being adequately compensated for inflation risks, and real returns remain deeply negative. There is a trend there, Ayo, and how long do you think it's going to continue?
Like I mentioned earlier, we've seen that based on the stance of the CBN wants the interest rate to be this low, with the objective of trying to see if the real sector can be stimulated, if interest rates can also decline. Yes, when you look at the interest rate environment, especially the lending rate, we've seen that moderation in the prime lending rate from about 11% to around 9.5%. But the maximum lending rate, which is more for the retail lending, for most, it's still currently high at around 30%. However, what will typically happen at this point is that investors will begin to seek alternatives, looking at other investment can help me bridge that gap, even if I can't cover the gap, or the almost 14% of almost 15% negative return. What are those options that I can take? What CBN is also looking at is investors should begin to look away from risk-free assets and look at other risky assets to support the economy. So what would be seen, or what we're seeing now is, even for the private investors are coming up with structured products tailored towards the real sector. And because of that leeway, that low interest rate environment, they have that leeway to also favor the potential investors, as well as the issuer is also raising at a very lower cost that makes a business sense, and it makes the business sustainable. So by and large, what we will be seeing, or what we expect to see, is that investors will begin to look away from the risk, what we call in quotes risk-free investment, to riskier investment. So it means that the risk appetite needs to change if you don't want to be worse off. So explaining what that impact will have, it means that if you're 1 million naira now, if you discount it by 14%, in the next 1 year, if you don't see how you want to bridge that gap, it means that your purchasing power would decline significantly by that amount. And you would, if you don't look for alternatives to see how you want to hedge, then that pressure would really be real, and it may have impact on your purchasing power.
Yes, Ayo, talking about alternatives, so wherein then lies the treasure? If you wanted some downside protection, where do you go to get it? Yes, the equities market is what traders call a risk-on mood. I mean, what do you think?
Yes. Yes, interestingly, so we need to look at the perspective. While I agree that the equities market is an inherent risk. So looking at the market in the last 1.5 months, market has gained about 4.4 trillion. It means that that amount, shareholders' worth, has improved by that amount. And it has a way of also stimulating demand in the economy. So imagine for those investors that have been able to garner such impressive gain in the market, that has increased their purchasing power to also be involved in other business activities or production activities. But beyond that, some of the structural products I'm talking about, so we have, for most of the fund managers that are licensed by SEC, for most of them are now looking at a way to structure product to finance the real estate, finance the agri sector, finance the need of most of working capital for most of the companies that may not be A-rated. For most of them, because of the experience that they have, they would also try to see how they get, even if it's a corporate guarantee, a bank guarantee, on some of these structures that give some form of comfort to potential investors. So, but investors should also look out for the financial advisors to some of these issues before they invest, and understand that in terms of their experience in the market. In addition to that, if you also look at even for dollar-denominated assets, you also need to balance that, because investing in dollar-denominated asset is also a way to hedge against inflation. We know there's that part of imported inflation that also filters into our inflation rate. So you may also need to have the dollar-denominated assets, and you have platforms now where you can subscribe as low as $1,000 within some of the investment outfits, where you can also preserve your investments. So we all need to be thinking now, is the free, almost risk-free investment is almost at a zero yield levels. Now we need to look at, I need to take more risk. And when we look at portfolio diversification, depending on your risk appetite, you can diversify your portfolio. You can begin to say, I want to put 10% in equities. If you have never done equities, I want to put 10% in structured product. And I want to retain 60 or 50% in the risk-free assets. But the interest or the return you get from those other structured product or other alternative investment may cover up for that value you are losing in your main investment.
Now, Ayo, the low fixed income environment, in my view, should support corporates to refinance their loan books and reduce their finance costs. We have not seen such issuances in this quarter. Do you share this view? And what do you think is responsible for the low appetite from the corporates?
Yes, very interesting question. And I believe that what we would see, looking at the current commercial paper in the market, we expect about 16 other new commercial papers to mature before the end of the year. We feel that some of these companies would also reissue and refinance this at lower interest rates based on the current interest rate environment. And we're hopeful that in the first quarter of 2021, we'll begin to see some of the A-rated companies issue long-term bonds or issue long-term instruments. Flour mills, for instance, we're currently trying to issue at a 7-year instrument at 6% or about 6.5%. That is very impressive. You're able to lock in, the target is about 70 billion, to lock in that amount at 7%, single digit rate, which is even lower than if you have access to the intervention fund at 9%. So we'll see some of the A-rated companies shift from commercial paper to corporate bonds in the next quarter. We'll also see that increase for those that are not even A-rated. They should also take advantage of that and refinance their books. The part of what slowed down, that what I believe slowed that down this quarter was some of the crisis the economy has had, and the purchasing power has not been significant, or has not been very impressive. So we believe that as we progress, we'll begin to see that purchasing power improve. We'll begin to see that increase in appetite for goods and services, which would also enable investors to the companies to expand their businesses, and they would require that they may want to do that with single-digit loans to support their business.
Now, Ayo, amid the low interest rates, a weaker macroeconomic outlook, and the periodic volatility in the stock market, the environment can drive investors to take on too much risk at market peaks, and such conditions would enable investors assess risks and establish long-term strategies. So what are some promising themes in the market right now?
Yes, thanks. We starting even from the equities market that we're seeing, we've begun to see investors looking at going into what we call value traps. Value trap stocks are stocks that, because of their low prices, you feel because they are cheap, you're coming in and they don't have that liquidity. You may get trapped in those stocks. We wouldn't want to go back to the era of 2008, and would advise investors to do their due diligence, discuss with their stockbrokers and their advisors to go into stocks that have strong fundamentals with a long-term investment objective. Beyond that, I spoke earlier about those structured products that can help. You need to be sure of the financial advisor that is structuring it. If you don't understand much of it, you can go into a pool of funds. You go into mutual funds. The fund managers, they would have done all those the screening of some of the structured products before they even invest in them. So you must understand where you're putting your money. That is the bottom line. And for even the dollar-denominated assets, you also need to do that with fund managers that are SEC-regulated, and you need to trust them. There are a lot of products that are coming out these days, and for potential investors, you need to be wary of them. You need to confirm that these are really regulated it's not about the interest that you are promised. You have to be sure that these firms are regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, so that in the event anything happens, you can also get back to the Securities and Exchange Commission would have reviewed some of these assets before they also come to the market. So it's important that we look at some of those products well and understand what you are investing your money in, and not be carried away with the high interest rates environment or high interest rates on those products.
Yes, Ayo, we appreciate your time on the program. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We'll do an opening call to London when we come back from this break. To stay with us. For update from the streets of London, we have Juliana Olainka. Good morning, Juliana. Well, the growth surge recorded yesterday follows easing of first lockdown, but ONS data reveals recovery slowing fast. It's the morning after that data. Are investors still reading those numbers?
Well, yes and no, Chimaze. Good morning, by the way. The FTSE 100 has actually opened up once again in negative territory and appears as if the elation that they had over a potential Biden administration, then the hopes over a COVID-19 vaccine before the end of the year, has definitely swept away. And now investors here in London are really focusing on the fact that a no-deal Brexit could possibly be on the cards in less than 50 days away. And COVID-19, with or without a vaccine, is really taking a grip here in Britain, even though we are in a second national lockdown here in England. Yesterday, I believe, we had the biggest 24-hour rise in positive cases on record. Over 33,500 people tested positive for coronavirus, and the death rates are again slowly creeping up. I believe 563 people died yesterday. So that is of major concern for investors. And we do have a little bit of breaking news. This name may not be familiar with most of our viewers in Nigeria, but here in England, Dominic Cummings is a name that nobody will forget. He is a very senior ally and chief advisor to Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and he has just resigned. And it's a huge story here in the UK, because Dominic Cummings has been such a ferocious character. He definitely was seen as somebody who put Boris Johnson into number 10, giving him this kind of populist phenomena that we've seen in waves across Europe and in America. But he has resigned. There is a huge political storm brewing here in Downing Street, and it'll be interesting at intraday to see if his resignation has moved markets.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to getting those updates there. On the corporate news, NatWest Group is eyeing Sainsbury's Bank for a potential takeover that could make the lender's first major acquisition since its bailout in 2000. NatWest has avoided major deals since it was rescued by the taxpayer in a £45 billion government bailout. Why does it seem they are changing their mind now?
Well, it depends, really. We're not too sure. I believe sources in the city say that the discussions between Sainsbury's and quite a few other major banks are still very much in the preliminary stages. NatWest and Sainsbury's this morning have refused to comment on these speculations. But you're right, since 2008, NatWest, which was formerly known as the Royal Bank of Scotland, they received a £45 billion bailout from the government, which subsequently meant that the taxpayer had to pay for it. And since that time, their hands have really been shackled. They haven't been able to acquire any other products, and they also have stopped paying out dividends. But the Sainsbury's banking portfolio looks pretty attractive to them and to others in the market. Before the pandemic, Sainsbury's Bank were in quite deep discussions with Nationwide to sell its £1.9 billion mortgage portfolio. At the moment, Sainsbury's Banking offers an array of products, not just in banking, but of course in credit cards and other product services. But Interest rates are at an historical low at the moment here in this country at 0.1%, and the profitability for Sainsbury's is just not good enough. Their chief exec wants to focus on homes and groceries, which is what they've been doing well. And of course, because a lot of people have been stockpiling and panic buying, they've seen their sales surge. And so it's still very early days. We're not too sure how this is going to pan out, but NatWest definitely appear to be at the top of the list when it comes to purchasing these products.
And why is Burberry attacking move to scrap tax-free shopping on eve of Brexit?
Well, yes, this is a really interesting story, actually, which will affect anybody who comes to London to buy their luxury goods. A couple of months ago, the Chancellor and the Treasury did announce that by the end of the year, so from December the 31st, non-EU customers can no longer travel into Britain and get tax-free shopping. I believe non-EU customers rebate about £2.9 billion worth of tax, but when they're shopping, they bring in about £22 billion a year. So Burberry are just one of a lot of key retailers and individuals within the tourism sector that are really worried about this because other parts of Europe will still allow tax-free shopping, particularly at a time when we are going into Brexit. Retail has really suffered. High streets at the moment are, some would say, on their last bed. And so there are major concerns about this. Burberry in particular, of course, Burberry with their British flag, a very well-known brand. They really suffered during the lockdown. I believe their profits have fallen by 61%. They just are not seeing the footfall. So they are just one of many that are asking the Chancellor and the Treasury to do a U-turn on this and potentially save 70,000 jobs, which are expected to go if we don't get those 1.7% of individuals, which I believe is about 1.2 million people, who are purely coming into London to shop in Selfridges and Harrods and go back home with a lovely Hermes bag.
All right, Juliana, you go and track how investors are following up on Commons' resignation. We'll talk about it later.
Thank you.
And back here on the debt and currency market, we have Dumebi Udebunam, fixed income dealer with Access Bank, to tell us what happened at the market and, of course, look forward. Dumebi, thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Now, the low yield environment in the fixed income market is not going down well with investors, and that seems to be driving traffic to the equities market. Does this worry you as a trader?
So, the market, the way used the currency and the market are not as attractive as we expected. We reached an all-time low in terms of use at currency at 0.15, 0.3, compared to where we opened at the beginning of this year. So, we're very worrisome right now. So, where used our currency, a lot are moving from the treasury market to the bond side of the space, which seems to be better, and also the equities market too. So that yesterday there was a circuit breaker. The first time this happened was in 2016. So basically, enough people are moving or diverting to the equities market and less activity from the market. On the bond side, we saw a lot of activities going out throughout the week. But a lot of investors are actually scared of one thing, which is the reinvestment risk quality in the market right now. We do want to buy a 30-year yield, a 30-year bond at 40, at 6 levels. So these are the basic issues that affect us or are very worrisome right now in the market.
All right, Dumebi, how has the market started today's trading? What are you observing? What are you seeing? And what does the outlook look like?
The CBN was able to mop up about 70 billion in the market, but the auction was oversubscribed. So we're seeing a bit of buying interest for those who were not able to get or win at the auction. So we're seeing a bit of buying interest right now at the market. On the bond side too, we're also seeing a bit of buying interest, but a lot of participants are taking profits. So there's no sentiment for the bond side, while sentiment for the treasury bills end.
Dumebi Udebunam, fixed income dealer with UBA. Thank you. for your time. We appreciate it. And that's a wrap on the program for today and, of course, for the week. Thank you for being part of it. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwagu.